Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Ann Bennett. I'm the Executive Director of the Laurel Historical Society here in Maryland. It's so wonderful that you were able to participate with us tonight or whenever you're watching. And I am joined by our Assistant Director, Monica Sturdivant, tonight. And Monica will be helping to monitor our chats and helping to bring this wonderful presentation to you tonight. We are in the fourth part of our spring speaker series here at the Laurel Historical Society. And this is all done in support of our current exhibit, which is What's Cooking Laurel, Restaurants, Recipes, and Communities. So we are able to dive into different areas of food, and we've been exploring different aspects of that the past couple of months. We started in February celebrating Black History Month by taking a hyper-local look at community cooking with the people and the panelists that joined us and the folks over at St. Mark's United Methodist Church and the Grove here in Laurel. In March, we celebrated Women's History Month by looking at recipes and cookbook collection from all over the world, really, in American cooking. And we celebrated Native American Heritage and Archaeology Month in Maryland last month with a professional chef who talked to us about Indigenous cuisine and Native American cultures of the Chesapeake from an archaeological perspective. And so tonight we are going to be talking a lot about food, but in particular how food plays such an important role in our culture and in our identity. And especially when traveling, it can really connect us to the history of an area and to the history of different cultures. And so we are joined by Kalin Thomas. You might have known her from her quite impressive experience and very long resume, but she comes to us most strongest connection through being a board member with the Small Museums Association and through the Maryland Women's Heritage Center. And she's a former reporter from CNN and just looking forward to a wonderful presentation on the importance of food and cultural tourism. So I will let Kalin talk a little bit more about her experience. I will be doing the screen sharing. And again, if there's any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat or Q&A. But I'm very excited to virtually welcome Kalin to Laurel. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Anne, and I really appreciate you having me tonight. And thank you to everybody who's joining us tonight. This is fun, and I hope that you guys will enjoy and have a good time with some of the information I'm going to impart. I'm going to start with a couple of photos of me with my CNN crew from back in the day. Excuse me, when I was a reporter for CNN's weekly travel show. I went to 6 different continents, including Antarctica. That's this first shot here. I love traveling and I love eating. And so this next shot is actually of me on the cruise ship in Antarctica, where they actually did a barbecue. And the food was amazing on that ship. And I just thought I have to take a picture of this, because who would think of being on a ship surrounded by icebergs having a barbecue? So that was an amazing experience. I would say that was the most unique travel experience I've ever had. I've also been to Japan, and that's a shot of me trying to eat the snail, but I couldn't really do it. I didn't really like it. However, I told everybody when I went to Japan I would not eat sushi, and I ended up loving sushi. So, and I have to say I'm a bit of a sushi snob now, because I've had it in Japan, and when I have it here now, it's not the same, but I still like it. So that was cool, learning to eat something new there. And then I also visited South Africa. And in South Africa, that's a shot in Soweto, where I visited a couple of the homes there. But in South Africa, a lot of people are major meat eaters, and I'm a meat eater, so I loved it there. I had major meat everywhere, including ostrich, which I had never had before. Unfortunately, I don't have a shot of that, but I will say that, believe it or not, it actually tasted similar to steak. So that was pretty cool. But I will say that with all the travels I've done, my passion is traveling to places that have some type of Black history. And so my passion is African American heritage tourism. So I've done some of that with CNN, but also with Soul of America and Cuisine Noir magazine. And so those two that I just mentioned are, they focused only on Black-owned businesses and tourist sites. And Cuisine Noir focuses specifically on Black-owned food businesses, food and beverage businesses. So we're going to get started with me talking about some of the restaurants that I've been to and done stories on that have fed members of the civil rights movement from the 50s and 60s. And we'll start with Pascals, which is in Atlanta, Georgia. This is a shot of their exterior of the new location. However, the original was opened by James and Robert Pascal in 1947. And it was opened on Hunter Street, which is now MLK Boulevard. I did get to go to the original restaurant before it closed down. It was a lot smaller than this one that you see here, but the fried chicken was amazing. And that's what they were really known for, their fried chicken. You can see another shot here of the interior of the restaurant, the new location, where they have photos, giant photos of civil rights activists on the wall. And you can see Martin Luther King here. And to the right would be Coretta Scott King and Juanita Abernathy. No, not Juanita Abernathy. That's Martin Luther King's sister. And so they have a lot of shots like that. John Lewis is in another shot on that wall. I believe they have a shot of President Obama giving the former SCLC president, Joseph Lowery, the President's Award. So they have that all over the restaurant. But in the original restaurant, they had the actual people there. Pascals is known as one of the places where King wrote a bit of his I Have a Dream speech. And they, like I said, they were known for their fried chicken, but also their macaroni and cheese. And we have some shots of that. Collard greens, the yams, the candied yams, and the cornbread. And this is something that will be pretty, I would say about all of the restaurants I'm going to talk about tonight do that particular plate. And a lot of times people call these restaurants meat and threes because you'll get a meat or two meats and three sides. And so this is something that is very common in a lot of the soul food restaurants that I have visited. And these are the old school soul food restaurants. So they're places that they don't vary far from what they're used to and what people have known them for. If we can go to the next shot. This is James and Robert Pascal. They were the owners. That is a photo that you can see in the restaurant. That particular shot is in a private room where you can have a group that does a private dining. They, like I said, they opened it in 1947, and it originally was just like a small diner. And then they also opened, if we go to the next shot, you'll see where they opened at the original location a hotel or motor hotel, which is like a motel really, and a lounge, which was like a nightclub. So it was a huge part of the Black community in Atlanta, and especially during the time of segregation where Blacks couldn't go anywhere else except to a Black-owned restaurant or nightclub or hotel. And so they were a major part of the community and hosted people like Martin Luther King, John Lewis, Joseph Lowery. And today, some of the activists who are still alive, like Andrew Young, who was a former mayor of Atlanta, still visits. He visits for the Sunday brunch. So if we go to the next shot, this is one of the people who was an original. He actually started working at Pascals as a teen. And he's one of the people who you can still see there sometimes. He'll come, especially if there's a special group, if there's a media tour or a big group from another country. But his name is Mr. Slack, Mr. Ebby Slack. And he will give you all of the history of Pascals. He's kind of become the historian for the restaurant. And he has told so many different stories about being there when Martin Luther King was there, when John Lewis was there. And of course, John Lewis was just a kid himself at the time, a teen. And he also talks about how much he learned from a lot of the people who came through the restaurant, and how Pascals was one of the first people to hire him. And so he's always been loyal to them and has stayed with them forever. So he was the one that told me that Andrew Young still comes for Sunday brunch every week. And he's a great person to talk to. If you ever visit and go with a large group, you can check with them and see if they will have Mr. Slack join you and tell you a little bit about the history of Pascals. So next we're going to go to Dookie Chase, and that's in New Orleans, Louisiana. This is the exterior. It's in the Treme district of New Orleans, and Dookie Chase was originally started by Emily and Edgar Dookie Chase Sr., and then it got passed on to Dookie Chase Jr. and his wife, Chef Leah Chase, who is known as the Queen of Creole Cuisine. She has since passed on, but I did get to meet her a few times and got to interview her. But Dookie Chase was an upscale, or is an upscale restaurant that has white tablecloth fine dining. And they were a major part of the Black community, especially during segregation. They have had a lot of civil rights activists come through as well, including Dr. Martin Luther King and John Lewis. They've also had President Obama come through. As we go through the photos, you'll also see Kamala Harris. But that's the interior dining room. And they have, I don't know if you can see it, but along the walls, they have a lot of Black art. And they consider themselves to also be a mini museum for Black art. And they really help promote a lot of the local artists in the community. So we go to the next shot. And there's a shot of Congressman John Lewis meeting with Dookie Chase Jr. However, before he even became a congressman, he was visiting Dookie Chase when he was active in SNCC, so the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. So we'll go to the next shot. This is myself and a cousin, and that was the second time I had visited. I visited her first, Chef Leah Chase, for CNN. Then I went back and did something for Soul of America. And she was so wonderful to meet. I loved her energy. And to me, she felt like my grandmother. And she kind of treated everybody like that. She was very, very sweet, but she was an excellent cook. And my favorite, she was very well known for her seafood gumbo, which was my favorite, and also her fried chicken, which, as I said before, that will be a consistent throughout a lot of these restaurants. A lot of the chefs were known for their fried chicken. And she also was great with red beans and rice. And I think we have a shot of some of those dishes. That's the red beans and rice. Behind that are, behind that, the red beans and rice are onion rings. And then the next shot is of her seafood gumbo to the right foreground and her fried chicken to the left foreground. And she's really, really famous for those. Now, she passed on last year at the age of 96. And, but her family, and if you look in the front, far left rather, that's her daughter. And in the back with the gray hair is her son. So her daughter and son are now running the restaurant. And also her granddaughter just graduated from culinary school and will also be helping them to continue to run the restaurant. But this is a shot of them all with Vice President Kamala Harris. So one of the things I wanted to mention is that when I interviewed Chef Leah Chase and asked her about feeding people from the movement, she said that, you know, she felt like she had to do that for them because they were going out there among police. They were dealing with police brutality. They were dealing with dogs, water hoses, things like that. And she felt like she wanted them to have at least one safe place that they could come to and not only be fed, but be fortified emotionally for getting back out there. And so that was extremely important to her, and also important to her, as well as to the other restaurants I'll be mentioning, was helping to feed the hungry in the community. And that's something they still do today. Okay, next we're going to go to Ben's Chili Bowl. That's in Washington, D.C., and that one is close to my heart because it's a place that I actually frequented as a student at Howard University. And I always loved the chili dogs. He's known for his chili dogs and half smokes, and also for his chili, of course. So one of the things that they had to deal with was the March on Washington in 1963. And there were a lot of people, of course, who were coming from all over the country to Washington, and they needed a place to go to eat, to sit down and talk. And Washington, because of that march, was on curfew. The city had put everybody on curfew. However, according to the Dookie Chase, the Ben's Chili Bowl marketing director, who is also the daughter-in-law of the owners, she said that they were asked by Stokely Carmichael to stay open late at night for the people who had come to town. And they did that and fed a lot of the activists who were planning to do the march. One of the things that they also mentioned was that they are a place that every person who is running for president has to stop by. That has become the place to stop by in Washington when you are running for president. And I know that President Obama went by there as a senator as well as president. And I think we have a shot of that. Well, that's actually Ben Ali, the owner and founder, who has passed on now. I believe the next shot is of his wife, Virginia, and their sons. And she is now the owner. And the sons help her continue to run the restaurant. That's his famous chili. And next is the famous chili dog, something that I would get every time I went. I think this next shot, yes, is of President Obama shaking hands with people at the restaurant. And this is a place that he went by several times. But like I said, everybody who's running for office, president or any other office, would run by Ben's Chili Bowl. It was important to go there. In the next shot, you'll see Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, who actually spoke at their 40th anniversary celebration. And seated to the left behind her, you will see Ben Ali and Virginia Ali sitting. Okay, we're going to go to the next. Sylvias in Harlem, New York City, was opened in 1962 by Sylvia Woods. And she is there in the front with the white on and glasses with the rest of her team, just on the outside of the restaurant. We go to the next shot, we can see some of the, that's the exterior today. That's their outdoor seating. And Sylvia's is located near the Apollo Theater in Harlem. It's right in the center of Harlem. Harlem has a ton of history itself, with Malcolm X, and they have the Schomburg Center, which has a wealth of information about Black history. And of course, everybody knows the Apollo Theater, where so many people like the Supremes and all the Motown acts first got their starts. But she also was known for soul food and was known as the queen of soul food. And so here you see her popular smothered pork chops with rice. Rice is one of the things that Sylvia said that she learned to cook first as a child. And she has the collards and the cornbread, and that's another constant that you'll see throughout a lot of the soul food restaurants. And you see behind that is her Sylvia's hot sauce. She also got into doing products that she sells on her website as well. And also you can find some of them in the grocery stores. The next shot will be, I think, her fried chicken that she was famous for. And again, the collards, the macaroni and cheese, which I actually love her mac and cheese and her fried chicken and her fried fish. If you go to the next shot, she was also very famous for her barbecued ribs. I never had them myself, but a lot of people really love them. And the next shot will show you some of the products that she sells. She had her cooking, dipping, and mopping sauce, and her triple strength hot sauce, and her Sylvia's fish fry. And she also has a bag of Sylvia's chicken fry as well. So she also extended past the restaurant into selling some of her products. And some of the other restaurants that I mentioned, they also have done cookbooks, like Leah Chase of Dookie Chase had a cookbook out. Sylvia's had a cookbook out. And you can find those online as well. So one of the things that I wanted to show is, because I didn't get, when I was shooting a lot of these places, and I shot most of them while I was with CNN, and so it was video. And so I don't have the video to show, but so I had to do these still shots. But I wanted to note that I didn't meet any of the civil rights activists while I was shooting at those restaurants, but I did get to meet some activists. And so these next couple of shots will show some of the people I got to meet. So Rosa Parks is here. I did get to meet her. I met her in Montgomery, Alabama, along with Mrs. Coretta Scott King and Mrs. Juanita Abernathy, that you can see sitting with Rosa Parks here. And that event was the 40th anniversary of the Montgomery bus boycott. And I got to interview them all at that event. And that was just, I can't even tell you how I felt meeting them all. Actually, I had met Coretta Scott King before that because she used to come over to CNN and do a videotaping about once a month. And so somebody always was asked to escort her back to her car. And one day I got asked to escort her. So that was my first time meeting her, and that was just amazing. So this was my second time at the 40th anniversary, but it was my first time meeting Juanita Abernathy, the wife of Ralph Abernathy, who was King's right-hand man, and then Rosa Parks. And it's just unbelievable to be among all of those giants from the civil rights movement. Next, we have a shot of Congressman John Lewis, who I'd met several times, but at this particular place, it was the Real Men Cook annual event in Atlanta, and he was doing his famous baked beans. And so that was fun talking with him at that event. And he is very, very down to earth, and a lot of fun, and has a great sense of humor. Next, we have Elaine Brown. She is a former Black Panther leader, and she was in Oakland at the time of the height of the Black Panther movement. And I got to meet her at a book signing that she was doing, and so that was great to meet her. And then lastly, Charlaine Hunter Galt, who was one of the students who integrated the University of Georgia back in, I believe it was 1962. So she also became a bureau chief for the South Africa Bureau for CNN. So it was really great to meet her. Okay, next we're going to talk about, I'm going to do the resources. So I've listed the websites for the restaurants that I mentioned. But at the bottom, I also want to mention soulofamerica.com and cuisinenoirmagazine.com. Those are two sites that I write for and do photography for. Soul of America focuses on African American travel and heritage travel. So they do listings of Black-owned businesses in each city, and Black-owned restaurants in each city, Black churches. They also do Black tour guides. So it's a place where you can go to see a listing for each city in this country, and also in places outside of the country where things related to tourism are Black-owned. Then Cuisine Noir magazine does full articles on Black-owned restaurants, food shops, chefs, wineries, just a little bit of everything related to food and drink. But they've also ventured into travel as well. So they also are doing some full stories on Black travel. And I write for both of those sites. And next, I wanted to do a special thank you to Ann Bennett and the Laurel Historical Society for having me tonight. And I wanted to thank some special organizations for promoting this webinar. Of course, Cuisine Noir Magazine, and also the Small Museum Association, where I am on the board. Check out their website because they have an upcoming conference happening in June at the University of Maryland, and also the Maryland Women's Heritage Center, which I am on the board of. And they have quite a lot on their website, so check that out for our upcoming programming. And I will say that I am planning to do a program in September in person at our museum, talking about my travels for CNN. So look forward to that and keep a check out on our website for that. So thank you for having me tonight, and I hope you learned a little something. And now I think we have time for Q&A.
There we go. Yes. All right. Thank you so much, Kalin. That was really fascinating. And I agree with some of the comments. We really should have eaten dinner before watching the presentation. So,
right. Me too.
So what I wanted to do right now is just take a quick pause, let you catch your breath, and I just wanted to tell everyone a little bit about some of our upcoming events as well. And if you have any questions, I encourage you to put them into the chat and to the Q&A box, and just really just kind of get a close-up view of some of these restaurants and the pivotal role that they played in the civil rights movement. So I am going to actually share my screen just so you can see some of our upcoming events. Give me 1 second to pull that up. And oh, that's not what I wanted.
Okay, we have a couple of questions coming in.
Okay, if I can get, there we go. Now, do you see my screen now? I should be able to.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. So this is just a quick reminder that, again, this wonderful presentation tonight is in support of our current exhibit, What's Cooking Laurel, Restaurants, Recipes, and Community. It will run through the end of December this year. Our museum is free and it is open to the public on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 12 to 4. And so we encourage you just to come to our small museum, check out this exhibit. I should say that we also have a temporary exhibit this month and next month on some national events that impacted Laurel, specifically the 50th anniversary happening in 1972 of the George Wallace shooting that actually did take place in Laurel. And the following month in June, we will be looking back at, again, the 50th anniversary of Hurricane Agnes and what huge impact that had on the community, the physical landscape of Laurel as well. And just a quick plug, if I could, we do encourage you to support the museum and support all the other organizations that made this presentation possible tonight. So you are welcome to join or renew as a member or make a donation for the virtual program tonight. And I'll be putting those links in the chat after I stop sharing my screen here. We also are always looking for volunteers or board members. So if you're interested in donating or behind the scenes action, you can contact us. And this is what I mentioned just briefly. We do have one final session in our spring speaker series. It will be in person though. So if you are in the Laurel, Maryland area, you can join us on June 9th. We're hosting a joint presentation with the Laurel History Boys, talking about that 50-year retrospective on some of these big impactful events in Laurel's history. And then also the temporary display on the right-hand side, again, May looking at Wallace, and then June looking at Agnes. And then finally, we are gearing up for more community events. We have our Laurel Garden Tour happening on Saturday, June 25th from 10 to 2. Tickets are on sale now for early bird pricing, and I'll put that link in the chat below and also in the follow-up email to all participants. And kind of deviating a little bit from our food programming, we will be hosting our summer camps again this summer in June and August, and we are very excited that they will be 100% in person again at the museum. So this is just my little thanks, this is a way of contacting us here at the Historical Society, and I'm happy to pass along any questions or follow-ups that you might have to Ms. Thomas after the presentation tonight. So this is our museum, this is our exhibits, and our contact information. So again, thank you for joining us. I am going to stop the sharing now, but still keep the recording going, so we'll be able to have all of the questions and the presentation together in this recording. Okay, so Monica, you said we had a couple questions. What are we looking at?
Okay, so the first question is, what is the most unusual dish you've had during your tours?
I would say the snails in Japan. Probably the majority of what I had that was really unusual was in Japan. I had snails, which I didn't like. Ostrich, no, the ostrich was in South Africa. That was interesting too. I actually liked ostrich. It tasted like steak, and I'm a steak lover, so I love that. But sushi was unusual to me at the time when I was in Japan, because I'd never had raw fish before. Now I love it. But also having octopus, raw octopus, and there was something else that I had that was raw that I didn't like. I can only eat stuff like that when it's fried. And so in Japan, it had to be tempura, which is fried, you know, for me to eat it. I couldn't eat it raw.
Okay. And the next question is, any up and coming restaurants or chefs in African American cuisine that you recommend?
Yes. One of the places that I just did a story on for Cuisine Noir was Poppy Cuisine here in Baltimore. And Chef Alex Perez is an excellent chef. His background is African American as well as Dominican. And so he spices up a lot of his food with the spices of his Dominican heritage. And so I loved all the food I had there. It was excellent. I'm planning to go back and take friends, take family. It's in the Fells Point neighborhood of Baltimore. And so that's one of the latest that I've done a story on. It's like I've done so many. I'm trying to remember everybody I've done. But there are quite a few Black-owned restaurants that are popping up more now in Baltimore. In Atlanta, they're easy to find. Atlanta has a lot of Black-owned restaurants, but it wasn't as easy to find in Baltimore, but we're starting to see more of that now. And I can't remember if I mentioned earlier that when I was, I'm originally from Baltimore, but when I first started working for CNN, I moved to Atlanta. So I lived in Atlanta for more than 30 years. And so now that I'm back in Baltimore, I'm actually relearning my city, and I'm relearning it also through eating. So something I love to do. Another place in Randallstown, Maryland, which is not far from me, is Grind and Wine Restaurant. And that's another place that I really love. Great atmosphere. It's a place that you can go to during the day, and it kind of gives you a feel of being in the house because they have sofas and everything for you to sit and get comfortable, and people sit there on their computers and do work. And then in the evening, it gets a little more lively. And certain nights of the week, they have live music. But the food, it's all about the food, of course. And the food is great. And one of the things that I really love there are their wings. And I'm trying to remember the name of them. They're like Asian. They have an Asian sauce to them. But I love that. And they also have their own baker. And they have excellent cakes and cupcakes and things like that. their carrot cake is to die for. So,
Okay, the next question is, what is your favorite cuisine and why?
I would say my favorite cuisine is soul food because it's comfort food. It's something that, just makes you feel good. I think that's the one that, though there are so many other types of food that I do enjoy, but I think if somebody said you could only have one type of food on an island, I'd have to say soul food. So, and, I have to say too that I didn't truly get to love soul food until I moved to Atlanta, because it wasn't something that my mother cooked a lot of. My grandmother cooked some, but I really got to taste really true Southern soul food in Atlanta and in some of the other places in like South Carolina and Alabama. To me, the best soul food is in the South. I hate to say that, but I think it is. And also fried green tomatoes. That's one of my favorite things. It's something I never had growing up. And I tasted them for the first time in Atlanta, and I tasted them in other places. And again, I have to say, fried green tomatoes are the best in the South.
They are.
So, yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, and we have a question from the chat. It says, when was Pascal's founded and what happened to its previous building? Was that its original location? I think you answered it was the second.
Yeah, it was founded in 1947, and I showed a couple of shots of the previous location. You just saw the sign because the building was bought by Clark Atlanta University in Atlanta, and they were going to use it to have a hospitality program for their students. But I don't know all the details of what went wrong with that whole plan, and it never worked out. And so it just sat there empty for a while and then was torn down. So I don't know what they're going to do in that space right now, but what you're seeing here is the new location in the Castleberry Hill section of Atlanta. And it's much, much larger than the original location.
Okay, and another question, what's a restaurant that's on your bucket list to visit?
Oh, wow. There's so many. Let's see. There are a couple of new restaurants that I want to visit in Atlanta again. Now, before I left Atlanta, Slutty Vegan was already there. But she's originally from Baltimore, but she opened up in Atlanta first. And I never got to try that restaurant because every time I went, there was a line around the block. And I don't stand in line for a long time for food. I'm sorry. I'm hungry. I'm going somewhere else. So I haven't gotten to try out her restaurant, but people tell me, because I'm not vegan, I love meat, but people tell me even people who are not vegan will love that food. So that's on my bucket list to visit. And I hope that she's going to open a place here in Baltimore.
Me too. Okay, and one more question. What is your signature dish?
In terms of what I cook myself?
Yes.
I'm not a good cook. I'll say that. If I had the money, I would eat out every day. I don't like cooking. However, whenever I have to go to a potluck, I always make deviled eggs, and they're usually a hit. So, and the sad part about that is I can no longer eat eggs. So I still make them for potlucks, but I can't eat them myself. I have no idea what my body is doing to me right now, but I can't eat them anymore. So yeah, I do that, and I do a pretty good spaghetti. That's about it.
Okay, and we have one more. It says, who has been your favorite dinner companion and why?
I can't say I have one. I just really enjoy being with friends or family. You know, going out to eat with friends is always a lot of fun, especially if we haven't seen each other in a long time. I love that. Whenever I go back to visit in Atlanta, that's what I do. I meet friends at a restaurant. And then, of course, going out with family is fun. One thing that has always been a tradition for us, along with, you know, my parents giving us big birthday parties, but as we got older, it was going out to a restaurant of our choice. And I have to say, you know, I'm not a she type of restaurant person. I can go to them, they're fine, but honestly, I like you to fill my plate with food and for it not to be too expensive. So a lot of shishi restaurants, they give you a dollop of this, a dollop of that, and then you're still hungry when you leave. So that's not my kind of place. And honestly, before COVID, one of the places I loved was Golden Corral because it has everything. You can get a whole lot of people to go and somebody's going to find something that they like. So that was one of my favorites before COVID. But I love getting a good portion of food. Don't be skimpy on what you give me. And I wanted to really stick to my ribs so that I don't have to say I'm still hungry when I leave. So that's my favorite kind of restaurant. I love diners too. One of my favorite shows is Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. And so whenever I visit another city, I try to visit one of those restaurants as well.
Kaylin, just real quick, we had a request similar. Do you have any favorite Black-owned restaurants in DC or in Prince George's County, maybe in some of the surrounding suburbs?
I don't know. I'm still learning for other areas like Prince George's County. But in DC, let me see. Oh gosh, I don't know why I can't think of the name of this place. It's actually a Chinese restaurant that I really love. But for some reason the name is not coming to me. But there's another place called L'Oreal Plaza, and it has some Mexican food, but also American food as well. But I really love that restaurant. They have great food and great drinks. And I'm trying to think of one other one that I really loved going to. I can't think of the name. It's a place in Georgetown. L'Oreal Plaza is in Northwest DC, not far from 16th Street. I can't think of the other street it's on. But I need to, you know, learn about some of the newer restaurants because the ones I mentioned are older restaurants. They've been there a while. And I need to check out some of the newer places.
That's wonderful. Monica, let's take another look through the chat. I think we've gotten everything, mostly just comments about agreeing with your restaurant choices and just how hungry everyone is at the moment. So
There's one more. It says, have you ever been to Timbuktu?
I have not. Where is that?
Isn't that up Hanover or Elk Ridge?
Oh,
I think it's between.
I'll have to try it.
Yes, yeah.
I'll look it up. Might be one of my next stories.
And we also have another suggestion from Henry Ward, who was our speaker last month, actually. He said, have you tried Ida B's table?
Oh my God. That's one of the places that I never got to go to. And then I found out she had closed. She closed during COVID, I believe, and never reopened. And so I'm really disappointed that I never made it to her place.
Oh, and Linthicum, I guess closer to the airport is where Tim.
Oh, okay.
I think we saw a hand raised too, so I think they were chiming in there. So, so what I think I'm going to do is just say final thanks to Kalin for a wonderful presentation. Thank you to Monica for pitching in as always for the presentation as well. I am going to stop the recording so it can start processing, but we'll stick around for a few minutes and monitor the chat if you have any other comments or anything like that. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We hope you check out some of these restaurants yourself. Learn more about the history connected with them, and come see us in Laurel whenever you get a chance. Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely.